Good morning, everyone. Thank you for showing up and taking time out of your busy day to just open up and take a chance to listen to me and share my experience serving on boards and committees and councils um, and just yeah. And I also just appreciate Charlie and John and Catherine's partnership in helping make this happen. So um, I will reintroduce myself. Taylor Crisp. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Spokane County, Washington. Uh, and my visual background is I got the cool Wise background. It looks like I'm in a really cool relaxed office space with shelves and the Wise logo background. And then I have long brown hair, partially pulled back, wearing a gray shirt. Um, so I'm going to start with just a brief introduction, brief intro. So the title of my presentation is How Boards Work and How You and Other Self-Advocates and those with disability, intellectual and developmental disabilities can participate and be involved and included. Uh, so this just kind of just shows how boards will work and how you can be involved in committees. So I'm just going to share a little bit of facts about me. So and why these facts matter. The facts matters because I am also an individual with autism. I was diagnosed at the age of 5. Known as in this. Autism is also known as ASDs. You'll see a few acronyms, but I will make sure and say those out. I am also a parent of a child who has some developmental disabilities as well, such as autism, ADHD, and other intellectual and developmental disabilities as well. I actually volunteered at an equine therapy ranch over the past few years before I started doing this amazing work. And I also used to work in a supported living agency as well, prior to working at the Arc of Spokane, where I work at now, advocating for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I do advocacy work regarding legislation. So I advocate on and educate families on policies that impact the people with disabilities and their families, and how it kind of directly affects them in their daily lives. And I also educate on access to voting for people with disabilities. Fun fact, 1 in 4 people with disabilities in the United States live with some sort of disability or will occur a disability at some point in their lifetime, which is why that inclusion truly matters. So I also work part-time in our community center day program, where I get to directly engage with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, such as myself, and that's really cool. And I get to do that this afternoon. And I get to help serve cake this afternoon to them, so that'll be fun. So I want to share a little bit of my lived experience serving the IDD community as well, which IDD stands for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. I feel this is important to share because it kind of gives that knowledge of why I am able to kind of give some education around serving on boards, committees, and councils. So as a self-advocate myself that advocates alongside the disability community and helps individuals with disabilities, I have direct experience serving on boards, committees, and councils. And these examples are, I worked on a toolkit to provide feedback to the education for the Washington State Office of Equity. It was a really cool experience. And I got to work on that toolkit with a wonderful self-advocate named Kyle Mathis, who has since sadly passed. And that experience to work on that with him was a blessing, because I got to work alongside them and other advocates to provide that necessary feedback and tools to provide to the Office of Equity to share with other kind of legislative committees and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. And that toolkit is still developing and as we speak. And so yeah, I was really grateful and thankful to work on that. And I'm also currently a board member for Allies and Advocacy. It's Allies and Advocacy is a solely and only self-advocate ran board where those with intellectual and developmental disabilities are on it, and that's it. And we kind of help provide help to the disability community and help organizations that work alongside with people with developmental disabilities to improve the quality of lives within our community. Also, as well, I used to co-chair for the Community Advocacy Coalition, which works alongside the Washington Developmental Disabilities Council and the ARC of Washington and other nonprofits like Community Employment Alliance. We all kind of come together and meet to help prepare for the legislative session. So I got to help kind of prepare for speakers like through DDCS, previously known as DDA, and inviting kind of those guest speakers to speak and provide updates on what's going on and how to prepare for the legislative session. Emailing members of the coalition to make sure they're included on invites, and also helping create an effective agenda and reaching out to others in the community about future meetings. I also currently run the ARC of Spokane's Advisory Council. This is fairly new and something I'm still kind of working on because I've always been like, I'm used to being a co-chair or a co-facilitator, but I've never really solely ran something. So this is kind of new to me. So I'm the ARC of Spokane's Advisory Council's chairperson, and I also set up agendas and meeting minutes quarterly and help facilitate schedules that work for everyone. And this council, primarily as of right now, is it's a council where people with disabilities who have either received services from the ARC or work for the ARC or volunteer for the ARC we currently have people that are affiliated with ARC on there. I'm trying to change that so we can expand it to other individuals with disabilities in the community as well. But right now, that's kind of just how I'm getting my experience and providing that feedback to the ARC of Spokane's board of directors and our executive director. So that's pretty cool. So and here's kind of my seat overview and what more we will go over. So I'll just kind of provide tools on how you and others and other peers with IDD can serve on a board and committee, a work group, task force, or council. These examples we include will go over how to create or assist with effective agendas or meeting minutes, how to truly advocate for your ideas and to speak up, note taking and communicating with other peers in work groups or even outside your work groups that may come and be on some of your meetings, and much more. So how do we create and facilitate an effective agenda? So agendas are really created using feedback and structure provided from previous meetings and notes. So and it's created usually before a meeting. Sometimes you may meet with other members to create that agenda. But it's also really important to include others in that process because that's how you can really get a good agenda going. And it just really just depends, and you can really just figure out who's delegated to do which role and task to help the meetings run and go smoothly so there's no hiccups along the way. So And the examples of how we can create that is agreeing to a meeting time that and day that really works for everyone. And sometimes meetings in person don't always work for everyone. Sometimes we need to do hybrid options or virtual options, just so we can really make it an inclusive space for everyone to join and feel included. Also breaking down time slots. Sometimes with agendas, you need to have a good flow, having kind of a scheduled time. I mean, I know meetings can sometimes go over and go under, and topics can go over and go under, but just creating kind of that time structure so it kind of keeps that good flow going. It can give you an idea of how where you're at in the meeting. Making sure you include those welcome introductions, visual descriptions, your pronouns, and also just a little bit about yourself, because not everybody may know you, or there's getting to know you, or they may be new to a specific group or council or task force. So, and also discussing necessary updates and topics from previous meetings to help include that to so you're kind of working towards something. And because if you just go over topics and updates and you kind of create that necessary like skill to, it shows that you're really working on a goal in order to kind of go on to the next step on what you're working on. Um, and make sure you know what your role is in facilitating and co-facilitating, and make sure you're just doing that direct communication. Who's monitoring the chat? Who's monitoring the Q&A? Things like that. And most importantly, addressing any questions and concerns from those previous topics. Community feedback is very, very important, especially if you're inviting guest speakers as well. And just and always leaving room for questions at the end, because I think what really creates an effective role in being a facilitator, co-facilitator, is always learning to accept feedback, because that's how we all improve. Because there's always room for improvement, and also, getting the good things out of it too, as well. So this is also kind of important, is advocating in work group settings. So again, communication is key. This is when it comes to advocating, it's important to not only advocate for yourself in these, and advocate for others. If you think of an idea, speak up. Like, don't be afraid to share it. Because I know even sometimes I get a little wary about sharing my ideas, because there's times I've been shot down in the past, or there's times where I've been kind of given a look, and really just working on overcoming those fears, and not being afraid to speak up, because it's your thoughts and your thoughts alone. Um, and don't let that fear of what others think of your ideas get in the way of speaking up and advocating, because you can't change, you can't make change if you don't speak up. And fostering that inclusion, and by inviting others to have a seat at the table, just like yourself. If you want to be included, chances are others want to be included too. I think the most important thing about that I've learned is, I want others to have a chance to lead. Don't get me wrong, leading, I love co-facilitating and facilitating, but I want to give other self-advocates and others a chance to lead too, because the more individuals we include to get that experience, the more leadership we have, and the more we involve the disability community to be included and speaking up. It just makes things much better. Also, diversity. When it comes to facilitating work groups and working alongside others, having a variety of different lived experiences is very crucial and vital to ensure that equity and access. Sometimes I feel like we have, as a society, we have forgotten DEAI measures. Um, and it really would be nice if we could kind of bring that, regroup and bring back to the table. People with lived experiences in whether it's immigration, people of color, and indigenous, BIPOC people of color, people with disabilities. There's really just that overlap, um, and so it's really important that we all share our voices and come together rather than speak separately. And this also kind of comes in work group settings, uh, and sometimes parents and self advocates, in my experience, have had differences and disagreements. And but we'll get that more into the conflict resolution piece, but just kind of sharing that idea. And I love this picture that I put here of equity. It really just reminds us that it's more than just equality. It's making sure that we provide a personalized approach to have everybody included. So in accessibility and inclusion, and what this looks like in work groups and committees and councils, everyone should have a chance to feel included and have access to all types of communication methods that support their direct individual needs. And how do we do this? We do this by asking if you or anyone needs ASL interpretation, and making sure that we find that the right person for that role to help when facilitating these meetings. And some also speak and communicate in different languages. Can we make sure we accommodate that so everyone is able to fully participate? This also includes other types of like sign language, and making sure and including other languages in Zoom. Like for example, sometimes Zoom has a global interpretation, so we can make sure that everybody participates that way. Also suggesting closed captioning and transcribing meetings for notes. This helps with that note taking and supporting people who are even deaf or hard of hearing as well. And considering that not everyone has that mobile access, like I had mentioned prior, to participate in meetings. So offer all types of virtual options for accessibility needs. And if someone is using a device to communicate for participation, something that I've experienced in the past that really stands out to me is those that use a device to communicate or may have trouble communicating their direct words. I've seen I have seen more often than not giving us a chance to let them finish their thoughts and really support that. And so that's the inclusion piece that's really important, is and that I feel like still needs to be work on, is making sure that those that, whether they're using a communication device, augmentative, etc., whether they're using that or they're just they have a harder time communicating their words, let them process their thoughts, let them finish, and let's really try to listen. And providing those also with that, and making sure we limit interruption and background noises. That can also help make sure we really listen to those who are speaking. And then providing meeting materials ahead in advance, agendas, meeting notes, and making sure those are in plain language. And take the option and advocate for the option to have meetings recorded. This helps with transparency and ongoing communication, so that no one feels like they have to reach out and ask what the meeting was about. And so they have the option to feel included that way. Accessibility inclusion also applies to you as an individual, as a facilitator and co-facilitator. It can feel heavy. It can feel like everything's weighed on you to facilitate and do things right. give yourself grace, um, advocate for your own accessibility needs. Just because you're a facilitator, co-facilitator doesn't mean that you don't have your own accommodation needs as well. Everybody should feel like they have the opportunity to lead and have the tools to do so. Um, and that just, I like these images. I just love that I found images that provide that inclusion for different settings. So conflict resolution, this is very, very important when facilitating and leading work groups and committees and councils, because sometimes we, when it comes to meetings, there is conflict that arises. It just happens. There's disagreements. There's difference of ideas and opinions. It happens. And sometimes it gets a little escalated. So when you are helping facilitate when you're helping facilitate participation in these settings, you may come across that. And so don't panic. This happens more often than not, and not everyone will agree on these and not be on the same page in terms of consensus. And here's kind of some ideas of how you can intervene when this happens and how you can come together as a group of people. And because sometimes it's not all about calling people out. Sometimes it's just about saying, hey, let's let others get a chance to share their opinion and their voice. Let's try to find a way we can compromise. That's why that consensus piece is so important. We've learned that in the Community Advocacy Coalition as well, and in the Office of Equity Toolkit. So when these disagreements arise, and making sure others are being respectful and not like straying away from the topics. And sometimes this happens when there's a heated argument or heated disagreement. A little bit of debate is okay. It's even healthy. It gets us to collaborate and focus on what's going on. But then when it comes to that arguing and raising our voices, that's when we need to go, oh, hey, let's get back to this baseline here. But just like when meetings become disrupted, it's okay to redirect their focus and we can do this by just staying calm, collecting our thoughts, and reminding them that we should stay on task. And you can also suggest that if they have any follow-up questions or concerns out of frustration, to reach out to you or anyone organizing meetings separately by email, phone, because it can make them feel validated and included and saying, and it can also kind of reduce those conflicts in the future, or make them more collaborative rather than kind of intense. You can also suggest that there's a concern or issue to be discussed in future meetings. So they have a chance to share their own opinion or their own point of view. So we can bring everyone together that way. Just like in the CAC, Community Advocacy Coalition, we have a chance for parents to speak, self-advocates to speak, providers to speak. It really just includes all that voices at the table. So even when those disagreements happen, we just make sure everyone's included, or even certain groups or demographics of communities have it. If they want to say, hey, I'm passionate about this topic, can I speak up on this? Give them that chance to be included, and that can also reduce that like conflict. So when it's hard, and even when it's hard, it's important to try to remind others to try not to interrupt and limit or reduce that background noise. Sometimes you may need to mute somebody, and you're not doing it to be, disrespectful. You're just doing it to make sure we're respecting current speakers. And just write, and also reminding others to write their thoughts down before sharing. Sometimes even I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I get so excited about a thought and I'm afraid to forget it, so I'll speak up. And so even I have to remind myself to write my thoughts down before just blurting them out, which is why I stay on mute most of the time because I just get excited about an idea, but also just making sure you're writing your questions down or your thoughts and reminding others of that too. And just the remind others there's a raising hand feature and it's offered in all virtual most virtual platforms. I haven't seen any virtual platform where that isn't offered. So respectful language. Without kind of going too into detail, respectful language is very huge, especially among certain demographics of populations, especially the disability population. And I think this is important to include because just like conflicts in meetings, sometimes things can get even more escalated than just the typical disruptions or disagreements. Sometimes disrespectful language is used, and sometimes, unfortunately, um, leaders can use disrespectful language too, as we have may seen in the past few weeks. So these are just kind of some gentle reminders when that happens, because sometimes disrespectful language can be very triggering to individuals we support and can be triggering to those in the community who these words directly impact. So when this happens, it's okay to advocate again, reminding just that essential reminder to speak up, take a deep breath and speak respectfully, even when it's hard to do that. Just say, hey, that's not okay to say that word. It's not okay to describe our community in that manner. It's okay to speak up and provide some educational feedback and tools, or say, hey, I really think you would benefit from this type of training. I think it would help you. Offer those alternatives to communicate with those that use disrespectful language, and offer other alternative terminology, ways to terminology or terms to use. Also setting up times to directly talk with the individual who may have said that harmful language, to help correct that behavior, or simply draft up a letter and email to and get others feedback saying, hey, before I send this, I really want your feedback on this. I want to make sure I'm carefully approaching this this behavior that really hurt a lot of people's feelings. And so this ensures and provides those educational tools to avoid disrespectful language in the future. We're not going to always 100% avoid that, but if we can continually provide those tools and resources to those that use it, it means we're doing our part to make everyone feel safe. And because we need to have that safe space to be who we are. And just and reminding those to educate those on person first language, because people with disabilities, we are people, and we deserve to be treated as so. There's disabilities are a beautiful part of us, but they're not the only thing we are. We are taxpayers, we are parents, we are volunteers in the community. So just making sure we pay attention to when we recognize disrespectful language, we speak up. And that's kind of gently calling out, you don't have to, as hard as it is, you don't have to, we can approach things in a way that's can educate others without kind of being on edge. So transitioning to list of work group opportunities. Sometimes when I started this journey, I didn't know where to start in terms of how to get involved with work groups, task forces of councils and committee. Everything was all new to me 4 years ago. And as I went on, I just got familiar with type opportunities and ways to get involved and share my voice. And these are just kind of ideas that I put on this slide to share what people with disabilities can get involved in if they want to be included and share their voice um, in work groups or things like that. So local school boards, that's a great place to start, especially if you have, if whether you go to school or you have a kiddo that goes to school. Um, that's a good place to speak out your concerns. And it's a good place to start and speak up. Local city councils, that's a good way to also share your voice and speak out. There's the Washington Developmental Disabilities Council. You have to apply for it, but it's a very good opportunity for people with disabilities to share their voice and be included in decision making. Self Advocates of Leadership, known as SAIL. That's similar, even though it's similar to Allies in Advocacy, although Allies in Advocacy is more of a board. Self Advocates in Leadership is more just a collaborative group of self advocates that come together and share ideas, not only in legislation, but how we can just make changes locally and statewide. In anywhere you volunteer, most nonprofits these days have boards of directors. So if you want to, so if a person with a disability wants to join a board, or if you know someone with a disability that wants to join a board, encourage them to do so if they would like to, because we need more voices of the disability community on boards. We do. It's too scarce. And if we could have, we need more voices of our community. So just kind of putting that out there. Anywhere you volunteer, any like nonprofit organizations, guaranteed they have a board of directors you can reach out to and ask to join. Legislative work groups, there's kind of a variety of them. There's not just one, there's many to do research on and be included. Just like city councils, it's not exactly a work group, but when there's legislative hearings, like for example, even though the legislative session just ended, if there's a hearing come up for a specific piece of legislation you want to speak on, you should have the right to speak on that and share your story and lived experiences. And most counties have disability advisory boards. So if you can, so kind of just look into your local county to see if there is one that you can join. And you can also reach out to me if you want to if you are looking for specific types of organizations or boards or committees you want to join. And I can see if I can get you connected. So collaboration and fostering partnerships. Oh, this is very, very important, because whether you are leading or co-facilitating a meeting, it's always a good idea to get familiar with other agencies or third parties' priorities or things they're working towards, because often that work overlaps and intersects with what your community is working on as well. It works with, usually sometimes it works with the same demographic of people. You'd be surprised, like the community, a lot of the community advocacy coalition, we work alongside developmental disability community services or division of vocation rehabilitation or OSPI, things like that. So inviting those agencies to come to your meeting if it aligns with your values and what you're working on, it's really important to include them, because they need education too and feedback. And so if you collaborate and work together, that's how you can also make a difference on their part and how they can improve. And it also helps to get familiar with budgets, ask questions if you want to know how things are funded, because you have a right to know that. And just getting familiar with that and not being afraid to ask those questions, because that's a great prime example of how changes can happen. And also know your rights. In the 2024 legislative session, The Washington State Legislature passed House Bill 1541, the Nothing About Us Without Us Act. This bill makes it so that when work groups, task forces, and committees are making decisions about people with disabilities in particular, and other demographic marginalized groups, that people, especially people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, have a seat at the table so that their voices are amplified and included when decisions are and policies are impacting that directly impact them, so they can have that voice. Because this piece of legislation, it's specifically important because people with disabilities are true experts of our own lives. And often we just need help with decisions, someone supporting our decisions, but not make our decisions for us. We truly can't serve those with disabilities the right way without their direct feedback and lived experience. So where does this change start? It starts with you. Without the many voices of self-advocates, including yours, true systematic change does not happen. This is why your voice and seat at the table is crucial. And it matters because if you do not speak up yourself for your needs, other leaders will, and make changes based off their own opinions and data and numbers rather than a person's actual lived experience. You can base things off of data and numbers or all the time, but really what matters is an individual's personalized experience, because those in charge do not, I mean, we've seen it, those in charge do not always make the best decisions for us because they simply just aren't us. So it's important to share our ideas based off of that, so that those in charge can access and tailor our the needs of our community. And just I just want to say thank you for your patience and your grace with my presenting. This was one presentation in particular I was very passionate about and excited to do, and something that I'm also learning myself. I am, even though I am on a lot of boards and committees and councils myself, there's still a lot of things I need improvement on and to work on. So I always love feedback, and because I'm still learning too. So, and I just want to thank everybody attending and the sponsors that help put this on, and those from WISE that put this on, and yeah, thank you for your collaboration and partnership. I appreciate it. Here is my contact information. Do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or feedback.